Hey there everybody, Mazarok here, and today I want to talk about blood DK in Dragonflight. Much like I did with the Protection Warrior video, I just want to have a conversation about how things feel going into Dragonflight, where there's some talents that could use maybe some work, or have obviously received a lot of love. What new things are really working for the spec, and what can kind of you expect going into Dragonflight. Before we get started, please do like, comment, subscribe. Flabbergasted by all the support. We are barreling towards 4K subs. Thank you everybody. As always, there's a Patreon link down below if you wish to support me directly. There is a Twitch link down below if you want to watch me stream. The current sub goal is for a Charmander onesie stream, so if you guys want to see that, you can get down to Twitch, as well as a Discord link down below if you wish to be part of an absolutely amazing community filled with really super awesome people. So yeah, let's get into it. So right off the bat, we are going towards a more old school classic style of blood DK with more power. But what's really important here is the rotation, right? We're getting away from the heart spam rotation, which in my first few dungeons as a DK, blood DK, I definitely find myself just rotating back into the more simpler spam heart strike, but that is definitely not the right way to go. You need to be a little bit more methodical in your planning and making sure that you're managing your bone shield charges really well, because aside from Dancing Rune Weapon and an A-Bombs limb, you're really not going to have many more of them. So like outside of Marrow Rend. So this is something that you're going to want to be using. Now, yes, Death's Caress, it does get you bone shield charges. The problem is it doesn't increase your runic power. So this is something that you're going to have to stop and think about as a button on a 6-second cooldown. Do you really need 2 bone shield charges for the cost of 1 rune, or do you want to use 2 runes and gain 3 bone shield charges but also some runic power? And these are some of the things you're going to have to think about. As for new additions for blood DK, I was really happy with Permafrost. Your auto attack damage grants you an absorb shield equal to 40% of your damage. Honestly, this showed up on the meters, and it was very close-ish behind Death Strike, and it was also I'm running a big mastery build, so blood shield is there quite a bit. I don't know if Mastery is going to be a play in Dragonflight. We're going to have to still see, but it does seem like Blood Shield is actually kind of okay and decent, but we're gonna see what's going on there. But a big new addition that I really had a lot of fun with was Blinding Sleet. This was a frost ability. Targets in a cone in front of you are blinded, causing them to wander disoriented for 5 seconds. Damage may break the effect. When Blinding Sleet ends, enemies are slowed by 50% for 6 seconds. You can use this to kite away, get away from something, have a full stop on a 1-minute cooldown. This is basically Blood DK's little shockwave, and it's at the top left of the tree and very easy to get. Yeah, and it actually feels really good. Another talent that I noticed that I absolutely loved was Gloom Ward. Absorbs are 15% more effective on you. This is anti-magic shell. This is Permafrost. This is blood shield, and it is very noticeable. And for a 1-point talent option, it feels really good to take. One of the things I want to highlight on the top right of the tree is the Raise Dead and Brittle interaction. So Brittle, what it does is your diseases have a chance to weaken your enemy, causing your attacks to deal 6% increased damage to them. And the reason why I say there's an interaction here is because you basically have to take Raise Dead to get there. And Enfeeble is actually kind of weak. Your ghoul's attacks have a chance to apply Enfeeble, reducing the enemy's movement speed by 30% and the damage they deal to you by 15% for 6 seconds. This was having about a total 10% uptime throughout the entire dungeon for Enfeeble, but Brittle had about a 30 to 40% uptime in the dungeon. So this is actually a pretty good talent point to take. I really liked using Brittle. I didn't like using Enfeeble as much, and having to go down this path for Cleaving Strikes, which you want, very good. Enfeeble, not so good. Brittle, pretty good. I'm not saying that this is going to be an amazing talent for you to be taking at all times, but don't feel bad about putting a talent point into Brittle. It does have significant uptime. For a random proc, having a 30% uptime in a dungeon is super, super solid. Will of the Necropolis feels really good, but one of the things that I was doing as well was an all-time, like full-time D&D build. So with Death's Echo, you have a second charge of Death and Decay, and while inside your Death and Decay with Unholy Ground, you have 5% haste while you remain within your Death and Decay. Now, this is important because we're getting our haste basically like slashed in half, and finding any ways that you can get that 5% haste is going to be very important, because currently on live, it's very easy to get like 99 to 120% haste. That's getting just chopped right down. So you're going to feel like you're going to need haste. So using the Death's Echo and having that second D&D means you can pretty much have full-time Death and Decay. So one thing Blood DKs are going to want to do is starting to track the duration of their D&D. So as one is ending, you can immediately pop another one down and constantly have that haste going and everything else. But the lovely interaction with this is it's not over. In the the Blood DK spec tree, Shattering Bone. When Bone Shield is consumed, it shatters, dealing 10% attack power, shadow damage to nearby enemies. This damage is tripled while you are in your Death and Decay, and trust me, this fucking slaps. And it interacts with Tombstone. Consume up to 5 Bone Shield charges. Consume. For each charge consumed, you gain 6 Runic Power and absorb damage equal to 6% of your maximum health for 8 seconds. But this becomes a nuke. Like, this becomes a nuke. And honestly, as Shattering Bone right now is my top damage. Now, how do you fix Blood DK's damage? Well, that's very difficult. Tuning Blood DK is actually a nightmare, because their damage is either really bad or broken as fuck. Like, there's no in between for a balanced Blood DK, and I don't think I've really they're either insanely broken or just terrible. And that's kind of where we're going to be going here. I think we're going to be dealing less damage than a lot of the other tanks, but we're also bringing a stupid amount of utility. So there's a lot of really good stuff here. You know, obviously Battle Res, but A-Bomb's Limb, Gorfine's Grasp, Blinding Sleet, Asphyxiate is an option, AMZ. And on top of that, of just being unkillable. Like, there's a lot of good things there, right? And being unkillable is definitely one of them. But Insidious Chill is a new talent that was added in, and this is one thing that I was noticing on bosses where the DPS were kind of struggling a little bit, is your auto attacks reduce the target's auto attack speed by 5% for 30 seconds, stacking up to 4 times. This is basically an auto curse of weakness, and right now your auto attacks actually deal quite a bit of damage. They're one of your top 3 damage dealers in pretty much any raid and any encounter, especially if you look at your overall. So there is something to be said here about taking this, especially for high tyrannical keys and helping your survivability. And then when you add things like all of the absorb talents, the longer dancing rune weapon, which is no longer infinite, but is very noticeable at 16 seconds and very, very nice to have. But you still have the interaction with Tombstone. Tombstone, I think, is going to be a mainstay talent now. You're not going to be able to swap away from it. If you want to take Mark of Blood, you can try, but Tombstone's just going to be too good with the interaction of Shattering Bone and getting your dancing rune weapon down as well. So there's a lot of things that Tombstone can do, so this button is pretty much here to stay and is going to be a mainstay in pretty much every build. But there's so many good options here. To be fully frank with you, Blood DK is looking absolutely great. We're going back to a classic style of play where your rotation matters, but if you play it right, you are absolutely unkillable with a lot of new tools in your kit. Umbilicus Eternus is just an insane absorb shield that's going to start mattering a lot more in higher keys, right? Because currently in the heroics, we're just still not taking that much damage. Like, most of the time I was dumping Runic Power and Death Strikes because I already had way too much Runic Power to begin with that I just wasn't healing as much. But once you get into higher keys, this Umbilicus Eternus is going to just be stupid. Like, it's gonna be stupid, which is so nice. Ironheart was definitely a noticeable talent only once I included the Gloom Ward Absorb. I found Ironheart on its own to be whatever, but once you included the Gloom Ward Absorb, so it was 20% more and then another 15%, really, really strong. Like, really strong, which might make Mastery an okay stat. Not okay, but a little bit above where it is now for, you know, for Blood Death Knights, because right now we really don't want any of it on live, but it might actually be a useful stat. The Absorb at Blood DK could be very, very real, and there's a lot of good options here for DPS and utility and survivability. Honestly, it's very good time to be a Blood DK, because currently Season 3 and 4 of Blood DK for current live Shadowlands, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, yes, it's powerful, yes, it's broken. It's fun to play, but I honestly had more fun playing Blood DK in Season 1 and 2, because your rotation actually mattered and it wasn't just spam Heartstrike. And we're getting away from that, which is very, very, very nice. This version of Blood is going to be an absolute blast to play, and there's going to be scenarios for quite a few of these talents. So, if you're excited to play Blood DK, let me know down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you very much for listening, and happy tanking.